What if the world you know today, filled with hospitals, mathematics, observatories, libraries, and scientific instruments, carries the fingerprints of scholars who lived centuries before modern laboratories existed? More than 1,400 years of Islamic history contains a remarkable journey of knowledge, curiosity, sacrifice, and discovery. It is a story that reminds us that progress does not belong to one nation, one language, or one century. It belongs to people who refuse to stop asking questions. At a time when much of the world was passing through difficult periods of political and intellectual change, Muslim civilization became a powerful center of learning. Scholars traveled across deserts, mountains, and seas in search of books, teachers, measurements, and ideas. They studied mathematics, medicine, astronomy, chemistry, geography, philosophy, and engineering, not simply to collect knowledge, but to understand creation and improve human life. The spirit of learning became deeply connected with the Islamic tradition, where seeking beneficial knowledge was regarded as a noble pursuit. Cities such as Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, Cordoba, and others became places where scholars gathered, translated ancient works, conducted observations, developed theories, and challenged existing assumptions. One of the most important centers was Baghdad, where the House of Wisdom became associated with a remarkable intellectual movement during the Abbasid era. There, works from Greek, Persian, Indian, and other traditions were translated, studied, preserved, and expanded. But the Muslim scholars were not merely copying the past. They examined earlier knowledge critically, corrected errors, created new methods, and produced original contributions that later influenced scholars in other parts of the world. Imagine a young student entering a library filled with manuscripts, knowing that every page could contain an idea capable of changing the future. Imagine the patience required to calculate astronomical movements without modern computers, to treat illnesses without modern hospitals, or to map distant lands without satellites. This was an age when knowledge demanded discipline. Among the brilliant minds of this tradition was Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi, whose mathematical writings helped establish systematic methods for solving equations and contributed to the development of algebra. His name became connected with the word algorithm, a term that now stands at the heart of modern computing. Yet his achievement was not an isolated miracle. Across centuries, Muslim scholars continued building upon one another's work. In medicine, Ibn Sina produced influential writings that organized medical knowledge and remained important for generations. In astronomy, scholars constructed observatories, developed instruments, and made careful observations of the heavens. In mathematics, geometry, arithmetic, and trigonometry advanced through sustained study. The deeper lesson is powerful. Greatness begins with curiosity, grows through discipline, and becomes meaningful when knowledge serves humanity. The history of Muslim scientists is therefore not only a history of discoveries. It is a challenge to every generation to seek knowledge, question limitations, and believe that one determined mind can help illuminate the path for millions who come after. Their legacy still calls us forward, reminding us that learning can become courage, service, innovation, and lasting hope for humanity. As this journey moves deeper into the history of Islamic civilization, the story becomes even more remarkable because the greatest achievements were not created by isolated individuals working without purpose. They emerged from a culture that valued observation, study, experimentation, travel, and sharing knowledge. Al-Biruni, for example, approached the world with precision. He studied astronomy, geography, mathematics, minerals, and cultures, using careful measurement and reason to understand the world around him. His work demonstrates a mindset that remains essential. Never accept an assumption because it has been repeated. Investigate it, test it, and search for evidence. In medicine, Ibn Sina transformed existing medical knowledge into systems of diagnosis, treatment, and observation. His famous medical encyclopedia became influential beyond the Muslim world and was studied for centuries. Yet perhaps the most inspiring part of this history is what happened when knowledge traveled. Manuscripts moved between cities, scholars exchanged ideas, translators opened texts to new audiences, and discoveries crossed cultural boundaries. Knowledge did not remain locked behind one language or one civilization. It traveled from Baghdad to Cairo, from Damascus to Cordoba, and into European centers of learning, where translations helped introduce and develop scientific ideas. This exchange reminds us that civilization grows when people learn from one another rather than building walls around knowledge. But there was another side to this intellectual achievement that is often overlooked. Behind every well-known name stood years of discipline, uncertainty, failure, and relentless effort. A scholar could spend months or years observing the stars, calculating numbers, copying manuscripts, studying diseases, or traveling long distances to find a trusted source. There were no instant search engines, digital databases, or automated calculators. Every discovery demanded patience. And now, the suspense of this story begins to rise, because many of the ideas developed during these centuries were far ahead of what people might expect. Instruments designed for navigation and astronomy became sophisticated. Mathematical methods developed by Muslim scholars became foundations for technologies that would appear centuries later. Medical writings influenced generations of physicians. Maps became more detailed, measurements more precise, and scientific discussions more systematic. The people creating these advances could not see the future of their work, yet they continued anyway. That is where their story becomes a lesson in motivation. They worked without knowing whether history would remember their names. They studied because knowledge itself was valuable, and they believed that understanding the world could benefit humanity. Their example teaches us that achievement rarely appears overnight. It begins with one question, one book, one experiment, one calculation, and one decision to keep going after failure. The lesson is powerful for anyone who feels behind in life. The scholars of Islamic history remind us that progress is built step by step. A person does not need perfect conditions to begin. What matters is the willingness to learn, the courage to investigate, and the discipline to continue. Their legacy proves that when curiosity is combined with perseverance, one lifetime can leave an influence that reaches across centuries, cultures, and generations. Their journey encourages every learner to believe that today's small effort may become tomorrow's lasting contribution to humanity. The journey now reaches its most important lesson, because the legacy of Muslim scientists is not simply about looking backward with pride. It is about looking forward with purpose. Across 1,400 years of Islamic history, scholars demonstrated that knowledge becomes powerful when curiosity is transformed into action and learning is connected with service. Their achievements in mathematics, medicine, astronomy, geography, engineering, and other fields remind us that every generation has the ability to contribute something meaningful. Al-Khwarizmi's mathematical methods helped shape ideas that eventually became essential to modern computing, while Ibn Sina's medical writings influenced physicians for centuries, and Al-Biruni's careful investigations demonstrated the importance of observation and measurement. Their stories reveal a common pattern. They did not allow the limitations of their time to destroy their desire to understand the world. They studied what was available, developed better methods, corrected mistakes, and passed knowledge to those who came after them. That spirit remains relevant today. Modern technology may give us powerful computers, advanced laboratories, satellites, and instant access to information, but technology alone cannot create wisdom. The real power still comes from the human mind that asks meaningful questions and the disciplined heart that continues searching for answers. The history of Muslim scientists, therefore, offers motivation to students, researchers, creators, and anyone who dreams of making a difference. It teaches that greatness is not measured only by fame, wealth, or recognition. A person can change the world by solving a problem, teaching another person, developing an idea, healing someone, preserving knowledge, or opening a door that future generations can walk through. The scholars of Islamic civilization could not predict how far their discoveries would travel, yet their work crossed centuries and influenced people they would never meet. This is the mystery and beauty of knowledge. A thought written on a page can survive the person who created it, travel across continents, enter another language, inspire another mind, and eventually become part of something much greater. That means the effort you make today may also have a future you cannot see. Perhaps the book you read, the skill you practice, or the problem you refuse to abandon could become the beginning of your own contribution. The lesson from this extraordinary history is simple but powerful. Never underestimate the value of learning. Do not wait for perfect circumstances. Do not believe that your beginning is too small. Start with what you have, learn from those who came before you, remain humble enough to correct yourself, and stay determined when progress feels slow. The greatest scientific achievements were built through countless small acts of patience and dedication. The legacy of Muslim scholars is therefore not only a record of the past, it is an invitation to build the future. Let their example awaken your curiosity, strengthen your discipline, and remind you that knowledge can become a source of progress for the entire world. If you are benefiting from our topics, please subscribe, like, and turn on the bell notification so you can see our new videos early.